Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add.
We're going to talk about John Benton, the deck I built for B here. Calling the list The Art of War. In case you didn't know, I was actually in the military, and me and John Benton had the same rank. Albeit, I think he's in a different branch. I don't know what he was in Doctor Who, but 3 stripes down in the Army and the Marines is an E5. I was an E5 in the Air Force. So I got some connection with the guy. B asked me to design this in a way that lure people in with like a sweet deal. It's only a 2-4 or a 4-6. We each draw cards. It's a sweet deal.
It's time to make a deal with the devil.
And then right before you connect, you pump him up and you... ideally, you kill your opponent in damage, so the cards they see just goes up in smoke, and there's no harm and no foul, and then you draw a ton of cards. So that was my thought, and I agreed with him. The element of surprise in war is a very effective tactic. You don't tell your enemies your plan right before you implement it. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to do that. Take lessons in actual combat and in life. Try to incorporate into a deck. There is such a thing in war as diplomatic relations. You try to sweeten the pot and make allies. There is a bit of a politics to this list. If you're bad at politics, then I don't recommend you play this list. I personally am not the best at it, but I'm going to try. It's been a while since I've did a lot of table talk. Ohm's Collector, for instance, is probably the number one synergistic and like biggest slap in the face you could have in this list. If an opponent would draw 2 or more cards, instead you and that player each draw 1 card. So if I hit someone for 20 damage with Sergeant John Benton, I will see 21 cards while my opponent only sees 1. Something that I really had the difficult time with was cutting cards. I know B personally, and I know he has access to these cards, so I'm playing not on a budget. This deck's like $1,800. Because I had so many cards to cut on the end, I had to choose between either enchantments or equipment. And equipment are better for more serious players, more competitive players, because are usually packing a lot of single target removal. Auras are a feel bad because then your opponents trade 2 for 1 with you pretty consistently. Versus equipment, they stay on the field and you could always use them. And like actual combat, you could pick up weapons off of anybody and use them yourself. A soldier's only as good as his weapon, as they say. We are going to be drawing a ton of cards. I hate wasting things and discarding things, so we have additional land drops to make sure we don't let anything go to waste. And we could be a mana-hungry deck. Equipments are expensive to equip, especially if you have a lot of them in play. This will fix that mana problem or that bottleneck. And then it also makes it so killing your commander is less effective because you'll have a ton of mana and you'll just be able to recast him. Bastion Protector, Indestructibility, and a stat increase. As for Sentinel, everyone knows this draws you cards, but having this in Voltron lists are even better because in the event that your commander dies, you just throw him on here, increase his power, and make it so nobody could pay his tax, and that means you could consistently draw cards. Guardian Augmenter has flash, so I could get people to waste their cards at instant speed. Gives your commander +2/+2 and hexproof. Pure Steel Paladin, I don't necessarily care so much about the draw trigger, but it is good because I am running a lot of equipment in this list, at least 20. The Metalcraft is more desirable, makes it so I can equip stuff for free. Stoneforge, the tutor for any equipment, and you could cheat them into play with its 2 mana ability, although a lot of my equipment are very mana efficient, so you probably won't be using the tap ability that often, but it could be relevant some of the time. And like Excalibur, for instance, is 12 mana. And it's important to have additional win conditions, and Approach the Second Sun fits really nicely. The likelihood of you playing this main phase 1, going to combat, redrawing it in the same turn, and then having enough mana on the back end to cast it again for the W is very likely. So, and then I haven't played Approach the Second Sun as a reliable win condition in a long time. Promise Loyalty and Single Combat, they're both board wipes where your commander dodges it. But I like them because it forces people to sack their creatures and or planeswalkers because it gets around indestructibility. Chroma's Will. This is one of the best gotcha cards that just ends the game the moment you play it. You get all these keywords if your commander's in play. The best keyword on here is Double Strike, and I guess the next best is protection from each color. Hopefully you kill people. I wouldn't play this unless you're going to kill someone. Battlefield Improvisation. In the event that your commander dies and everything falls off, this is a nice surprise combat trick. You can give a stat block and then throw all of your equipment that's in play onto the creature. Hopefully it's your commander and finish people off. Berserk is a game finisher too. Doubles the power of a creature, gives it trample. Hopefully you've made your commander indestructible, because then you get around the clause of destroying your commander on your end step. You could use this on other people's creatures. You could make a deal and make them kill each other for you.
He's the one you want. Kill him.
No, kill him.
No, kill him.
Kill him.
He held the ball. Remember? Come on, look at the.
That's one of my favorite reasons or ways of playing Berserk. Choose your weapon. We will always be picking 2-weapon fighting to double target creature's power and toughness till end of turn. It's also an instant speed combat trick. You need clever concealment and Teferi's protection so you can get around Cyclonic Rift. Also really good because it acts kind of like an extra turn spell where you can't be interacted with for a full revolution of the table. And then you go into combat and finish another person off, and then be down to just one player. Inner Column, Outer Strength gives your target creature +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. I have a couple of these effects that care about your hand size, and the goal is to get one of our effects and make it so our hand size is infinite. That way we can one-shot people with these effects. Kai's Onslaught gives your target creature Double Strike. Wrestler's Rampage does the same thing. Instant Speed gives some Double Strike for 2 mana. Now for the real fun stuff, the equipment. Blackblade Forge, you get a stat increase for each land. We do have like a land sub-theme, so it should do a lot of work. Champion's Helm for a stat increase in protection. You'll notice as we go through all of my selected equipments, they all do something plus a stat increase. It's kind of like a bare minimum that you have to work with. There's too many equipments out there that do both for you not to be doing both. Commander's Play for protection and a huge stat increase. Conqueror's Field to keep people out of our turn and give us stat increase. I was running the max number of these, but unfortunately I had to cut Kutzel, Mael, and I forget the 2-drop that does that too, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Keeping people out of your turn in a combat trick-centric list is important. Having the stat increase to finish people off as fast as possible so they don't see a lot of cards ultimately trumped everything, so I had to give up a lot of those effects. Imperial Plate cares about hand size, punch people for a lot of damage. Hammer and Zahn for protection and a stat increase. Also, it auto-equips itself and auto-equips every equipment you play afterwards. It lets you dodge a lot of mana expenditure. That's why it's a $10 card. I think it's underpriced for how good it is. Hand of Vecna also cares about hand size. Power Fist, it kind of does this like delay kind of effect where it gives stat increase after you deal the damage, but it's exponential growth. If you don't finish people off the turn you hit it with it attached the first go, you definitely will on the second. And like even in the early stages where say this is the only equipment on him, giving someone else and yourself just 2 cards, I'm okay with that. Like hitting someone for 10 and not killing them is that like moral gray area where I don't really like it. It's either all or nothing. Half the commander damage and then seeing a bunch of cards makes me really nervous. So you might want to avoid doing that if you can. It does take a little bit of restraint to pilot this list. A Sword of Feast of Famine unfortunately gets pro green, so like it's a bit of a non-bow with some of our spells, but the untapping of all of our lands is too much to ignore. So we have a lot of stuff to equip and it's mana taxing. This helps us fix that problem. Sword of War Piece, also a non-bow with some of our stuff because it gives pro white. But never have I ever went out of my way to include this sword. It's typically the most hated and weakest sword of all 10. But in this list, it is perfect. Because you could layer the damage triggers, You can layer it so you put the Sword of War and Peace on first, and then you put John's trigger on after. John's trigger will happen first, so me and my opponent will fill up our hands. A lot of cards. It takes our hand sizes into account. So I will gain life based on my hand size, and my opponent will lose life based on their hand size. So you're literally doubling your damage output. It might be enough where it kills your opponents.
Magnificent! Magnificent! Magnificent!
The One Ring, so we have like another Teferi's protection effect where you can't be interacted with for the most part for a full revolution of the table, and that might buy you enough time to kill 2 players. Imperial Armor, this is one of the very few auras we're running because we care about hand size, and it's one of the fastest ways to grow our commander with ease. Forge Anew lets us circumvent mana cost of equipment just only once a turn, but it also makes it so we can equip stuff at instant speed. So if someone wants to kill our commander and we have like a sword in play or Champion's Helm, we could respond to that trigger and re-equip and save our commander. On ETB, you could return an equipment that got destroyed. Sigarda's Aid, this also helps us circumvent equip costs, and it lets us play equipment and auras at flash speed, so it adds that element of surprise we really want. Smothering Tithe, this will help us break the symmetry of John Benton's damage trigger by giving us a ton of mana. Strong Back, this is like Ancestral Mask, but cracked out. Makes it so your auras are 3 less, make it so your equipment costs 3 less. It can reduce it to 0 equip costs as long as they're generic. And then, for each R and equipment that's on the enchanted creature, it gets +2/+2 as well. So it's probably one of the best cards in this list. And the rest are just lands.